welcome everybody from wherever you are. I'm very excited that it's sunshiny and it feels almost like summer still over at my house, which is such a joy. Let me see, are people joining? Uh, I am here to talk about the impact of your demographic data or demographic data on corporate partnership success with my guest, Jennifer Robbins. I'm just going to give it another minute, Jennifer, so that people have a chance to join and the stream all catches up with itself so that we're good to go. If there's someone watching that can send me a little note saying that you can see, that would be great. And you can hear, I guess that's even more important. Okay. Good news. All right, well, let's get started because I did say we were going to start at noon and I know we have a lot to cover. I mean, that's the most important thing. We have a lot to cover. This is not all going to get covered in this short amount of time. I'm Heather Nelson. I'm from BridgeRaise. We're a corporate partnership consultancy. We help charities and nonprofits raise more money from companies. And I am thrilled to have Jennifer Robbins here. Jennifer, I'm not going to read your bio. I already told you I'm not a big bio fan. I would love to hear you share a little bit about yourself with those that are joining us, though.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather. First, I just want to say I'm so thrilled to be here and also testing out LinkedIn Live. This is very exciting. So for those of you who I've not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Jennifer, and I'm our not-for-profit lead at Environics Analytics. And for anyone not familiar with Environics Analytics, we are your data people. And in the charitable space or not-for-profit space, I help my clients understand who their donors are, whether that's through demographics or psychographics, media use, giving behaviors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and really helping them from the individual donor perspective, typically on how to raise more funds. I guess a little more, being at EA for 9 years. I started as a data analyst, so I also am a bit of a data nerd. And funny, not funny, but personal anecdote, I'm a diehard Star Wars fan. So if you don't want to talk data with me, let's talk Star Wars. So
Okay. Well, hopefully that's for somebody in the chat because I'm a Hallmark movie type, not a Star Wars type. So there we don't intersect. But where we do intersect is in this sort of bridging company and charity, right? Because that space between, you working at a company for charitable clients, similar to me, but also understanding how companies and charities can work together is also, something that both of us lean into in our jobs. So we're overlapping there. So glad to have you here and glad to have this conversation because as most people know, I've been involved in corporate partnerships for a long time. And the kinds of data that Environics Analytics provides has always been something I've loved to have at both organizations I've worked at. And when we see a client that has that data, I'm like, yay! So it's going to be fun to talk about how, like what we're talking about, a little bit more about what we're talking about when we talk about this data, and then how it can be used, because I really do think it's one of the keys to success for our nonprofit partners that are looking to raise more money from companies. So let's get started with this. Making sure that everyone kind of knows what we're talking about when we talk about data and demographic data in particular, so that we're all on the same page about what this is about. What kind of information, data, demographic knowledge do you help your charitable clients know about, learn, use?
perfect. Thank you. So I did give the high level snapshot of what EA
Yeah.
does, but a little bit deeper and then answering the questions.
Yeah.
So we specialize in data. We have over 40,000 different data points, which is a lot and
Mhm.
is always overwhelming. But some very specific examples we have: what is the average household income? We have specific sports and leisure. So Is this neighborhood likely to be hockey players, for example?
Right.
Are there media preferences? Is this someone who's on Instagram, or are they your Facebook people, or do they read the Globe and Mail? We also have things like purchasing behavior. And then everything we do is at a postal code level. So, little tangent, there's a lot of privacy compliance in Canada, but this is very helpful to know that you can actually get pretty granular in terms of the data. Now, from an audience data perspective, really it's filling in the gaps in your own data. It's complementing what you already have, because understandably, as a not-for-profit, you already have really valuable donor and constituent data. What streams they're giving through, how they're giving to you, what that average gift is, how often they're engaging with you, like so many really important data points. And so what we're bringing from or in general, but in general, other demographic data, it's filling in those gaps. And these gaps you can also be doing yourself. You can capture this through your own data as well, whether that's through survey data or whether that's through asking if someone makes a donation. And the importance of the data is that it brings your donors to life. So it's wonderful to be able to say, yes, we've got this contingent of donors who give to us every year, but what else can you tell about them? And so being able to add in the demographic details to build in basically a persona, is incredibly important, especially when we're speaking about corporate partnerships.
Yeah, I love it. So, I mean, it is, in some ways it's complicated, in some ways it's easy. But to recap a little bit of what you said, and my understanding of it too, is most charities have a certain number of people giving to them. They know a little bit about them, and you can use that information and all the stuff that you have, and you can tell them more about those people, not
Yes.
as individuals, but as like a group. So, if you're an organization that has, perhaps a lot of young people giving to it, and those people live in an urban area, then, you know, your demographic that can tell them all sorts of other things about where they shop, what they do, all that kind of thing, without them having to ask those questions specifically to each individual person. So it's
Yes.
like, it's fascinating, this ability to, learn about people in, like, in a way that we have to admit, like, at an individual level, could be right or wrong. Like,
Mhm.
our data might be the same, and I just said I love Hallmark and you love Star Wars. So, you know,
Yes.
there's room for, individual variation, obviously, but well, this is like the law of averages. You're saying, okay, we can suggest things about them, and
Yes.
of course then that allows these organizations that have this information to take different sorts of action. And in particular for this conversation, we're going to focus in on the types of actions and things they can do with it in the corporate space. I know that there's a huge number of things that this can influence in individual giving, and we'll leave that for another day. So today, what are some key ways that an organization could use this data to help them build a corporate partnership?
Oh, that's a great question. I think there's many ways. I think there's three
Yeah.
that I'll want to focus on. One is that affinity piece. So affinity for the charitable organization and affinity for that corporate partner. So those shared values is really what I'm trying to get at here. And how we look at that at EA, and there's more than one way to do this, but I'll talk about my own experience and my knowledge. Is
Hmm.
we have a data set called social values, and it's a large national survey conducted by a partner company, Environics Research Group, and it's getting at the core values and beliefs, motivations of Canadians. So it's really speaking to what you hold nearest and dearest to your heart, and why this is important. I mean, we use this in a few different ways, talking about messaging and what ask.
Hmm.
But when I think about this through the lens of corporate partnership, it's trying to understand, why is this donor in my database? So why are they giving to me as an organization? And how can I take that affinity, that value, and match it with corporate partners? And this is incredibly powerful because it's really speaking to what both organizations are trying to get out of the world. And, an example that I think of, just one of the social values we have is called attraction to nature. And it's speaking to people who thrive in the great outdoors, who, are wanting to do camping and hiking and all of that. And there's tends to be a correlation between those attraction to nature that also have environmental cause type values as well. But when I think of this, you can leverage this for organizations. I mean, front of mind comes Patagonia or Canadian Tire or MEC. There's a really great alignment in what they're offering with the organize or my example organization, and then the joint value of the donor. So that's one of the ways.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah, go ahead.
example because it really kind of explains this idea that if we're an environmental charity, there are certain donors that are more likely to be attracted to us, and those donors probably also shop at at MEC or at one of the sort of outdoor companies. So you're kind of bringing all of that together, and I can really see how when you're reaching out to a company, being able to make that connection for them. I mean,
Yeah.
it shows a deep understanding of who you are as an organization, what your donors care about, and then connecting it to what that company cares about. Love it. And we know from the data too, different data type, that the importance of values alignment between companies and their charitable partners is one of the biggest predictors of success.
Mhm.
If you have that, then you're well on your way to a strong partnership. So the fact that you can get data to demonstrate that, and then we know that that is likely to create a more sustainable and successful partnership, bringing those two pieces of information together really make it even more worthwhile to know this, right? To know about this overlap when you're
Yeah.
talking to your corporate partners.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Um,
Okay.
so that's
Second
one.
one. You were going
Second
to go on
one.
to second one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I will pause because your comments are so valuable. So the second one, this is a little bit more, so the values are so intrinsically important, but this one's a little bit more black and white is what I would say. And so we would call this like our brand consumption variables. And this is speaking really to, am I a Starbucks? Am I a McDonald's? Or am I a Tim Hortons? Like literally, like, where are you spending your money? What are you consuming? And so
Okay.
we have variables, all the things. If you can think of a category, we have the things. And so when I think of this can be used in a few different ways. And the example I'll give, I'm going to use an event, for example. You're looking for an event
Mm,
sponsor. And let's
okay.
say you're specifically looking to go after a big bank. Again, I'm making things up. This is a
Yeah.
general example. And within the behavioral data you have, so we've taken a look at the donors in your database. We've said, okay, so you've got these groups, and of these groups, about 40% are banking with TD. Great.
Mhm.
You can use this two ways. You can say, hey, TD, we've got this great event coming up, and we know that 40% of the people who are coming to this event are your customers. This is a great opportunity for you to engage with your audience, your direct audience.
Yeah.
One. The other side is, oh, hey, CIBC, we have about 40% of TD's customers coming to our event. This is a great
Right.
opportunity for you to speak with your competitors' audiences. So it's again a little bit more black and white than the values, but it's also looking at, hey, like we have people in our database that are the same as your customers, and I can prove it. I
Right.
can show you. So that's one way that we
Yeah.
would also use like the brand concept. Simply, are they your consumers
Yeah.
too? Are they partnering with
I
you
love
too?
that one. I love that one. Yeah, I was at an local environmental charity that was doing an event, and we did this with the car sector, right? We
Yeah.
knew that based on our database, and we did a combination of a survey with some demographic data to know that one car company was very, very well represented, and we went for the loyalty side of things. Like, wouldn't you like your customers to see you here doing a car giveaway, this whole thing? And it worked great.
Mhm.
It was definitely a clear hook for them. They were excited to know that they had such a high penetration amongst the audience that were going to be at this event, and that we knew that. So it is a really powerful conversation starter for sure, right? Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't want to both talk to their own customers and engender loyalty, but also maybe some companies are thinking, how can I gain market share? So yeah,
Yeah.
love it. Love it.
Um, and that, so yeah,
Okay.
I that one I think is just a pretty, as I said, kind of black and white
Yeah, it's
of how do you choose
straightforward.
it.
Yeah. Okay, your third
The
example.
third
How?
one
Okay.
is having demographics, just plain demographic pieces, and a little bit of maybe a little bit of media here with demographics. But from this perspective, if you're able to fill in those demographic gaps, you can present who your audience is. So, okay, your example of, we know that our donor database, in this case, they skew younger. So we know that they're, the under 45 crowd tends to support us. That in and of itself is valuable to corporate partners, because
Mhm.
coming even back to the previous example of the brand correlation, even if you don't know the answer of, are they shopping at this particular brand or not, you can say, hey, like, our audience is under 45. This may be someone that you're looking to attract as well. Here's an opportunity for you. And then from the marketing, like an execution type standpoint, is you can then find like audiences, and I'll quote unquote say on the ground, but in all of those different platforms as well. And this can help with so marketing or execution aspects of that corporate partnership. And then media is not quite part of the demographics, but we'll just add this in here. Even if you have, even if you know your media channels, and this can be from your own data, not necessarily external either. This can also be part of that discussion with your corporate partners. Hey, look, I've got this audience, they're under 45. And we know that a good proportion of them have been coming through our Instagram ads. So I know I've got captivated audience in Instagram. How can we build this into that proposal? So those would be some easy, straightforward ways to use demographics.
Yeah, I like that too. And with some of us, we have very limited budgets
Mhm.
for getting to the right people. And so when you know where those people are going to be based on sort of the overlap between who cares about your cause, maybe who's already in your database, or who you've now established cares about your cause, and what channel they're in, that can also help with your budget decisions, right? Back to your Instagram example, then maybe if you're going to put any like boosted posts, if we're on the small end, or campaign decisions, you're building it around the format that makes sense in Instagram. You're not coming up with like a TikTok campaign, because that's not where they are. So, and sometimes I find we see organizations kind of trying to do a little bit of everything. Oh, I'll do a post everywhere. And I like the idea that this can help you say, you know what, we don't actually, it doesn't make sense for us to do everything everywhere. We're going to pick, this particular platform, or this particular media outlet. If it's a thank you ad, you don't want to be putting your thank you ad in the Globe and Mail if your whole audience is only reading magazines, or whatever, like,
Yeah, yeah.
so some of these sorts of decisions can really be helped. And when there is, sometimes internally you have these debates that come down to like someone's personal preference. I always like, then it's really nice to be able to say, well, actually, the data says that our audience is in this location. So even if, personally we prefer this or that, sometimes this data can really help, make those hard decisions for our team.
Absolutely. Yes, agreed.
Okay, so there's so many ways to go here, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about like examples in action. So let's say we're at organization who now has the demographic data, right? You've done the research. Um, Perhaps it is not one that you've given them a company list. I know that we'll do that next. But this first one, they've got some demographic data that you've helped them with. And now we say, okay, we're going to we're going to use this for good. Let's be really, really practical here. Like, what would be the first step that you would suggest they take? I know this data, it's really robust, right? So they've got like a nice big juicy pile of information from you. Okay. And they're saying, okay, I want more corporate money. What would be your like step one? What should they do?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. Okay, so step
Yeah.
step one. Um, I actually think step one is perhaps more of a question for you, from
Okay.
your expertise. But I can give an example of what, like a very specific example of what one of our clients has done. And I don't necessarily know what the first step is, so
Okay.
apologies for that. But
Okay.
we did a project, a relatively modest project. It was a small organization with an arts and culture organization in Toronto. So give a little context there. And this particular organization, they did not necessarily have a lot of their own data. So unlike from a fundraising perspective, where you capture donor data
Yeah.
for the receipting, this organization, they had a lot of free events or free activities going on. So they didn't actually get to capture customer information. So there was a limitation there, and we were able to use some of our mobile movement data to help fill in those gaps. So like, who are actually the people coming? And the answers we were able to give them to their questions: one, who was coming in terms of demographics, so going to that demographic piece. But the second is, how far were people typically traveling to get to the
Ah,
organization? And what that allowed them to do is, when they were speaking with corporate partner, and very specific one, can't name both for obvious reason,
yeah.
but they were able to say, hey, look, like we have this venue, and we know that the vast majority, I think for them it was like 85% of the visitors to their venue were coming from basically within the city of Toronto. So,
Right.
and not just the city, but kind of from like midtown down, like basically the downtown core was their
Right.
audience. So that was important to know as well. And then their demographics skewed very, very young. Very definitively for them, it was uh, condo dwellers. It was the under 45 crowd, those who walk, cycle, and use transit. So already painting a pretty good picture. Most were very well educated and also a higher household income, and none of that surprising given the location. And they took the demographic, like literally the document that we gave them, which is all the high level demographics, and they put this into their overall partnership proposal. And the corporate partner they were approaching, they're like, oh, you work with Environics Analytics. We do too. This is great. We know these data points. And they were actually really surprised that the organization had demographic data. And again, it doesn't need to come from us. We'll talk a little bit about where else you can find these data points as
Mm.
well. But the very fact that they were able to say under 45, downtown Toronto condo dwellers, and educated, higher household incomes, that was sufficient for their corporate partner to sign on board. And I'm happy to share from their perspective, this was actually their first brand new corporate partner in 10 years. And
Wow.
it was a six-figure agreement that they came to. Really, really exciting. And they really felt that having the demographics, like knowing like who's actually coming, was one of the deal breakers, or the deal success. I don't know how you say that, but the success
Yeah.
for the deal,
Yeah.
because they were able to say like, hey, these are our people, and they're the same as your people, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I love that story. And I mean, well, maybe where they started was getting the data and realizing how important it is.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing I think I will pull from that is, one of the things we talk about on our side often is, part of it is about establishing yourself as a good partner. Like,
Mhm.
and an organization, when you're sort of building your reputation with a company, you may do this by showing who's on your board. You may show other companies that are already giving to you. But if you're in your scenario where they don't have a robust number of other corporate partners to sort of say, look, here are all the other companies that trust us to do corporate partnership, having data and being able to show, look, we understand that this is part of your puzzle for making this decision really is a big credibility booster. And I love that. I think it really shows the partner, your example, even if they didn't have you as a client.
Mhm.
If an organization, a charity or nonprofit has that kind of data in their proposal, it puts them in a special category, right? Like there's not a lot of organizations doing that. And I think that most companies would kind of be like,
Yeah.
noted, right? And that gives them a little boost when, the endless flood of requests come into a company. This would make it stand apart. And I
Yeah.
think that is and back to our first point, if it stands them apart and it shows alignment, whether it's alignment on values, which is like one of my favorites, as you know, but
Yeah.
or on audience, or on location, traffic, whatever the specifics are, that existence of that overlap, so important. Okay, we're getting near the end, and I really want to talk about something in particular. You've mentioned it a couple times. It's really important to me too. I think that this conversation is one that sometimes smaller or mid-sized organizations think this is out of our reach, right? This is not for us. And I know that there's lots of ways that you work with organizations that are more affordable than probably people are thinking. So I first want to say, don't assume that you can't do work with EA. But let's say they're really at the beginning and you're like, okay, we have no budget. So we have no
Mhm.
budget and we want to get started on having some data in our proposals and our pitch decks. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I premised in my intro, I'm a data person. Let me help you get started. So,
Sure.
um, leverage the platforms or the data points that you currently have. So for anyone who's using Google Analytics or who's using, their social media platform analytics, take a look at what data you're receiving from there. And it may not be an apples to apples to your database. Understandably, it's very, very hard to marry online web traffic to who's coming through the door. Like I do
Right.
understand that. However, in all the work that I've done, it paints a similar picture. The people that are visiting your website or the people who are clicking on your links and the demographics associated with them, you have people that look like that in your database. So you're not
Right.
totally out to lunch if you use that. So
Yeah.
that's one. Surveys. SurveyMonkey it can be free.
Mhm.
And I understand that, being a primary researcher, does take special schooling and what have you. There are
Right.
ways to appropriately ask questions, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And so taking advantage, and I do also understand that response rates can be challenging, but I also know that if you're really transparent about why you're asking the questions, you know, I am looking to raise more funds from corporations. I need to show them who my donors are. Can you help me? You might be surprised at what people are willing to give you.
Yeah.
And,
I
and
love
then
that answer. We've done that a few times, right? Like where we're just
yeah,
like, I think people are reluctant to give information if they feel like there's like someone's trying to sneak one past them. But when you're super transparent and you say this, you care about us as a charity, we're trying to raise money so that like our fees don't go up or so our, whatever, like so we can do this thing. Yeah, I think you're like, I was shocked by the response rates at the organizations I did this with. And while I'm sure that there are better ways to ask questions than some of the ones we asked, it was still fine. Like it was a getting started thing. And I want to go back to your different data points too. I also think people get overwhelmed with trying to cross-reference things. And if that happens to you, like my answer is stop. Like make one little thing for your website and a different one for your database and put them both on the slide. It's okay, right? Like
yeah,
it's
100%.
okay if you're not there where you can, do all the things with the data, just put the data that you have, right? Like be like just be transparent. This is what I've got and it's still a starting place, right? And it
Yes.
still gets the ball rolling,
Yeah. I have
right?
just one more I want to add
Yeah.
because
Yeah, yeah, please.
I'm taking this from one of my clients actually is on their donation form. They have a question specifically for, what is your connection to the cause? And this goes back to that affinity piece. So not to do with demographics or,
Right.
tell me your household income, but like, why are you donating to me today? And I think that can really help, going back to our very first example of how you can use those values and beliefs. Like, why is this person giving to us? Can help you as well with other types of fundraising to know what that affinity is. And so I would say, if you're able to add that in, and I know that we don't want to add any hurdles for donors making gifts, I
Right.
understand, but if you can add in one single thing, why are you donating to us today? What's your motivation? I think that you can use that across many different aspects. So that would be my third piece of data. Leverage what you have is the long and short of all of my examples.
That's it. That is leverage what you have. And I guess what I would add to leverage what you have and get started with something.
Yeah.
We're all about that over here. We're like, you know what? You don't have to be end game at the beginning. Let's get some data out there. Let's start trying to sort this out a little bit. And then I feel like once you've started, then you start seeing the other places it shows up, or the places you might be able to make a different decision. When you are making a decision in social media, or when you're making a decision on a donation form or in a survey, can you add one more question that might help with this? And then it sort of, it snowballs. And then you feel more ready for perhaps a project like EA might do, because you feel like you've got your hands around the role data and demographics can play in your organization.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic. I have learned so much. I hope everybody on who's joined us live or who's going to watch the recording does too. If you do watch the recording, I hope you do add a comment, or feel free to ask us a question, and we can follow up after. And to that point, I just want to I know that you're available in various places, Jennifer. So where can people reach you if they want to ask a question or follow up about demographic data?
Yeah, of course. I will. I'll happily provide my email address. Shoot me an email, or on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Please don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. I am always happy to talk all things data. So yeah, those would be the two places I would suggest, best places to reach me. So thank you so much, Heather, for inviting me to speak today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has. I hope everybody got something of value. Oh, sorry about that. Something of value out of this. And as I said, we'd welcome questions. We're both active on LinkedIn and love hearing from people. So do send us a message if you have any other questions. And thanks for joining me. I look forward to another LinkedIn live in the future. Thanks again, Jennifer, and take care, everybody.
Bye, all.